This is a Power 98.7 podcast. Now we're talking. Subscribe to Power 98.7 podcasts in iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. There's more on power987.co.za.
We continue to discuss yesterday's midterm budget speech and the priorities outlined by the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana. In May's budget speech, 61% of non-interest spending went to the social wage, and the minister confirming that number remains. And the social wage refers to health, education, social protection, community development, as well as employment programs. We now speak to Professor Chris Desmond, who is the Derek Schrier and Cecily Cameron Chair in Development Economics, to talk to us about those spending allocations and the budget priorities. Very good evening. Thanks so much for being on Power Business this evening, Prof. Chris. We've occasionally heard from the Finance Minister at the midterm about an increase in social grants, and that wasn't on the table yesterday. It's usually a very small increase of 10 Rand per category.
Yes, no, we saw a statement which basically implied that he doesn't trust the capacity of the social sector to deliver effectively in its interventions.
Wow. Okay, that's quite there was also the savings where he talked about that we are implementing medium-term savings of 6.7 billion Rand, and I'm reading the speech, by closing or scaling down low priority and underperforming programs immediately. More than half of this involves identifying people who are double dipping and defrauding the social grant system.
Yeah, of course, it's wonderful to, as far as we can, avoid much of the corruption or misspending of resources. So obviously we would all endorse that. But what I mean by saying it shows a lack of trust is that essentially the minister's arguing for an austerity approach. It's saying that we have to cut back consumption spending in order that we can focus on investments, and over the long term, those investments will allow us to rein in our debt and manage it. So that means that if you are containing social spending, that you see social spending as consumption. But if you are spending in the social sector, whether it's education, health, or social development effectively, that spending will pay for itself over the longer term. People will be better able to work, they will be better educated, they will be in a stronger position to participate in the economy, and you will see those returns. And so when you're making a decision about austerity, to classify the social sector essentially as consumption rather than as investment means you do not believe that your line ministries have the capacity to deliver effective services. And so that comes explicitly with removing some of those highly ineffective services, but it comes implicitly with failing to rapidly increase expenditure there, because we need to contain this consumption expenditure, which is obviously how he views spending in the social sector.
I mean, many finance ministers, it's not just this one, who've said that they want to rein in consumption spending, as they call it, and focus on investment, i.e. infrastructure and growth. But we haven't yet seen it actually take effect.
No, we haven't seen it taking effect, but it's actually, this is the key problem, I think, in South Africa, but also in the world, is that we don't see the engines of growth as people. We see the engines of growth as infrastructure, as the setting up the economy so that it can run more smoothly, which are all things which are true. But as I was saying, it's quality services to people, showing trust in people. That is where you can get the real returns in the long run. But you have to invest in it enough that you get the quality. Investing in low-quality education, as we do, we invest a lot in very low-quality education, investing a lot in very low-quality healthcare, investing a lot in very poorly managed social development services, won't lead to returns, and therefore leaves us in this consumption category. And that's true in many countries, is that we don't have a faith in the broad population. We have the faith in the few that may be working within the private sector. And it just acknowledges that we are heading really more and more along a two-economy system.
So then what would you say if the current budget on spending on the social wage had to be contained? How would outcomes be improved without further investment?
So there are many things that now can be done within, say, for example, the education sector and within the health sector to improve efficiency, and that's where we're not seeing the focus. What can we really do to address those deep problems? There's been countless suggestions made, but they just haven't taken this issue on firmly enough to really grapple with the issues there. And that's partly because of the strength of the unions that they don't wish to engage with. And that's partly just because of a lack of will in order to deal with many of the challenges that face. And it's partly to do with the entrenchment that corruption creates in the systems that we have.
Do you believe yesterday's medium-term budget was an austerity budget?
Yes. No, they definitely saw ways in which to contain social spending in order to bring down the debt. And as I say, what's scary about that is that in and of itself isn't a problem. But what is scary about that is that we have the social sector within this idea of consumption.
Okay. So what does this mean for people who rely on social grants, who rely on public education, public health?
It means that we'll continue to see, as we have for very many years, this idea that that they're in the category of charity, that we can do as much as we can afford to do for them. We will allocate what is available to them. They are not in a category of trust, which is to say we are focusing, and this includes particularly young people in this country, we are focusing on minimizing harm to people. So we want to provide the grant and provide the healthcare, provide the education to the extent we can to minimize the harm that those people experience. When what we should be doing is trying to maximize the potential of the people in this country. And that requires a real faith in those people. So this budget sends a message to them is that we don't have faith in you. We do not see you as the drivers of this economy going forward. But we will do what we can within the constraints we face while we fix the problems within the private sector and we get this economy going. So essentially what the minister is asking us is to say, you need to be patient. But we should be clear, when people are saying you need to be patient, I'd much rather be patient by the pool. There's a strong class dimension to patience. If you're sitting by the pool, living a decent life, you can be patient while they get the debt under control and we get the economy moving again and we see progress. I can be patient by the pool. But if you are a young woman going home in the informal settlement, fearful that your door could be kicked in at any time and that the police will not come and that you will have to leave for a low-paid domestic work job in the morning if you're lucky enough to have a job, patience is a problem, and it should be a problem. But that is what he's asking us to do. Be patient while we get this train wreck, which we caused, back on the rails, and then in time we'll start discussing where this train should go.
I mean, the budget deficit is still quite high. It's going to. He's trying to moderate it down. The debt to GDP ratio to 77%, 77.9%. Is South Africa not spending enough, or are we just not spending enough in the right places?
We're not spending it well. So we actually have quite good allocations across many of the social sectors. As you mentioned, we have a very high proportion of the budget which goes to the social sector, but we're not spending it well. The return that we get on our investments in education and in health and in social development are very poor. Social development is probably the best of the three, but within education and health, we're just not seeing the return we should expect. There are other countries which are investing smaller proportions of their budget in these sectors, but seeing far better outcomes. And so we really have to engage with this very challenging question of how is it that we do invest significant resources into the social sector, but we are simply not seeing the results. You know, we still have a quarter of children who are stunted by their second birthday. We still have some of the worst education outcomes in the entire world. We still have a health sector which is not only corrupt and incompetent, but cruel. And we do that on the back of large-scale social investment. So we have some very fundamental questions to ask about how we're getting it so wrong.
One of the big social investments is the SDR grant, 370 Rand. That's been extended to March 2027, as confirmed by the minister yesterday. Do you think that's a positive piece, that at least this small grant, as small as it is continuing?
I mean, it's a good thing. I'm glad that it's continuing. It helps alleviate some extreme poverty. But it's not an engine for addressing some of the fundamental challenges we face. It's more an acknowledgement that we're failing to address those challenges. I mean, many of the people who receive that grant would much rather have a job.
Absolutely.
So this is it's a band-aid over a gaping wound. Yeah. Good to have it, better than nothing. But really, it's nothing compared to the challenges that we're facing.
And a quick one from you, Prof. Chris. What the NHI funding, it wasn't addressed yesterday, but the minister, speaking just before the budget speech to the media, said that he actually doesn't believe that the medical tax credits should be removed just yet. Do you think this is a positive sign? South Africa's moving towards NHI funding, although there still is quite a lot of disagreement about how the NHI should be funded.
I mean, I think, again, it's a reflection of his lack of trust in the capacity of line ministries to actually deliver the services that they speak of. There is no one who can really make a moral argument against NHI. I mean, the inequality we have in access to health services is profound. But people can make arguments on the capacity of the Department of Health to deliver the NHI. And I think what the minister is implying there is that he does not yet himself have this belief that they are in a position to start to implement at a level of quality that is necessary for the NHI to function. And so, again, it reflects his lack of trust in the government itself, rather than a firm move towards the NHI.
I mean, that's quite alarming for citizens, because if the finance minister doesn't believe in his own government, then he's asking all of us to believe in the government.
Yeah, I don't think he is. I think he's asking us to believe that we can grow the economy and that jobs will address poverty, and that somehow we will grasp hold of this elusive idea of inclusive economic growth, and this is going to raise us all out of the situation we're in. He's actually agreeing with the rest of the country, saying, I don't trust the government to deliver. I'm going to try and pave the way for the private sector to deliver. That's
definitely an interesting take on yesterday's medium-term budget policy statement.
You've been listening to a Power 98.7 podcast. For more podcasts, visit power987.co.za or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.